Hello, welcome to the House of Wellness. I'm Luke Darcy and happy to be back after a short break for the Commonwealth Games, which was brilliant, by the way, and it's great to be alongside the wonderful Joe Stanley. Welcome to Jacqui Felgate and Dr Nick Carr. Good to see you guys.
Hi, Darcy.
Lovely to be here. It's fantastic to be back and to welcome Jacqui and Dr Nick Carr, of course, who'll be with us every week on the new look House of Wellness. I love it. I did enjoy the break. I binged on the Commonwealth Games while Jack and Dr Nick, you escaped the winter cold and had some beautiful holiday time overseas.
I did. I was very lucky to celebrate my 40th in Europe, Euro 40, and it was so wonderful to be travelling again.
And I was even luckier. I got to the US for the World Games, which are the Olympics of the minor sports, held every 4 years. And I was there to watch my little girl, Olivia, play ultimate frisbee for Australia and win a silver medal.
Very proud dad, I can see. Congratulations, Nick. I don't know a lot about ultimate frisbee, I must admit, but tell us a bit about it. It's a great achievement.
Yeah, it's an amazing game. They are so fit, these kids, because it's a little bit like netball. When you catch the device, you have to stop running. So all the movement is people trying to receive the device. And there are two things about ultimate you might not know. One is that even at the elite level, there are mixed teams playing. And the other is that they are all self-refereed. There's no independent umpire.
My only experience with frisbee is throwing a frisbee to my old dog in the park, and he's not very good at it. So let's kick off today's health news and the world of virtual reality. In a world first, surgeons on opposite sides of the globe have used VR to successfully separate conjoined twins. 3-year-old Bernardo and Arthur Lima from Brazil were born with fused brains. After months of space-age style trials, surgeons in London and Rio wore VR headsets to operate on the boys in the same virtual reality room. The surgery took a mammoth 27 hours.
And what's really amazing about this is that the boys' vital signs only improved when they were back together holding hands.
Oh, that is so beautiful. And don't you think that's evidence to show that medicine is sometimes a little bit of miracle as well?
Yeah, and it seems to be quite common with conjoined twins that it's only when they're back together that things settle. And here's a piece of information you might not know. The very first conjoined twins that were separated here in Australia were done by my father-in-law, Peter Jones, in 1975.
Amazing.
That's a real high-achieving family, the Carr.
Makes us all fitting a little bit.
Yeah, I take no credit, my father-in-law.
Well, from that uplifting surgical success to news that's bound to be a fizzer for some. A major nutrition and behaviour study has found that 1 in 5 teenagers consumes energy drinks, believing they're good for their health. I can hear you there, Dr Nick. Despite being full of sugar and linked to headaches, stomach aches and insomnia, the survey of 4,000 high school students revealed many teens still think they're beneficial.
Well, you know, this is the evidence of the power of advertising and how misleading it can be as well, because, of course, a lot of energy drink brands support extreme sports. So the kids that love those sports think that they're going to somehow benefit from, I don't know, energy, performance, and it's just not true.
They're all the ultimate frisbee players afterwards.
There you go. It is probably why the study found boys are much more likely to drink them, Joe. And while we're talking performances, Das, here's something that you may have suspected. Australian researchers have found that jet lag does have negative consequences for sport performances. Scientists at the Turner Institute of Brain and Mental Health monitored NBA basketballers for 10 years, a huge study. It found that when teams had to travel long distances across several time zones in a short time, their performances could be significantly impaired. I just got back from Europe. The jet lag on the way back, I don't want to complain, but you really do feel it.
Well, it's not conducive then to elite athletic performance, is it, Jacqui? So not surprised by that study, but even a bit closer to home, the Western Australian-based teams have always felt like their careers were shortened by the fact that they travelled exponentially more than the players that were based, you know, in Melbourne, for example. So, yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
And there is good evidence that travelling west to east affects your circadian rhythm more than going the other way. The good news is you can do something about it. You can use melatonin judiciously because it's all about light and our natural 24-hour rhythm. And that's one way you can help with that jet lag.
I actually did that. It does work. It does work. The findings have prompted Richard calls for all sporting codes to factor in the effect of jet lag when scheduling matches does.
And I think they already do. There's mandated breaks now between games, and I think the sporting authorities have got a bit better, a bit more sophisticated understanding. We do need to give elite athletes the right amount of break for sure. We're going to take a break. Great to see you, Jacqui, and Dr. Nick. We'll catch up with you a bit later on the show. But up next, Joe and I meet the famous Aussie farmer who's helping disengaged youngsters reconnect. That's here on the House of Wellness. Well, Joe, there's no doubt that the teenage years are a time of enormous change.
Oh, it's a very difficult time. You're finding out who you are, navigating friendship groups, dealing with issues within the family and the pressure of school. It's all so challenging. And I remember when I was going through my teen years thinking that I was the only one struggling, and then you realise that all your friends are going through it as well. It's quite a shock at the time.
And I look back and think how lucky you are to have had family support and people around you that genuinely understood that's a challenging time and were there to listen to you and give you a bit of space, but the support was always there. What a gift that is at that age, isn't it?
Yeah, well, for some kids it can all become a bit much. Some disengage from school and their community and become at risk of falling through the cracks. And that's where an awesome youth program called Rough Track comes in.
Rough Track transforms the lives of 13 to 17-year-olds by building up their self-esteem and their self-worth and reconnecting them with their community with the help of some very sympathetic helpers.
Yeah, Rough Track's a pretty simple, straightforward story. We've got 3 jobs, and that is to keep kids alive, keep kids out of prison, and give them skills for a secure future. So we're going to break those cycles that have, through no fault of their own, got kids in a pretty bad situation where they're making poor choices.
Farmer Dave is not your everyday farmer. Instead, what he's growing are futures for vulnerable kids, using one particular thing.
We're going to offer it to him and see which one he wants. Righto. The heart of our program is dogs, because what we do know about dogs is they don't talk much, but they listen a lot. And when you're going through a hard time, you just need to be heard. And each kid bonds with a dog. They learn trust, they learn responsibility, they learn respect, but they also learn kindness, because a dog's going to move away from you if it doesn't trust you, doesn't bond with you. It's so difficult to be mean to a dog. And these kids are often really mean to themselves and other people because hurt people hurt people. And dogs really just break that entire cycle and allow you to start a whole new relationship one-on-one. And we extrapolate that out and we get them to do that with their mates here at Rough Track, their elders in the community, and then of course their own families. And then that's how we re-engage them back into society, is starting with a dog. That simple, straightforward, beautiful magic that happens when you put one kid and one dog together. And the last one, can you do it?
Good boy!
Yes!
Met my dog, met Bud, yeah, so he's changed the perspective on life for me a lot. Yeah, I wasn't the type that really wanted to be around a dog at that time. I just wanted to be myself. But yeah, me and Bud, we click a lot, same brain, real crazy. Yeah, he's my best mate. He's the one I go to talk to. I'm with him 7 hours a day usually, so yeah, he's one of my best mates. He's done a lot for me and I've done a lot for him.
Me and my dog, we have a strong connection. Wherever he goes, I go. Wherever I go, he goes. Sometimes he doesn't listen, but he's a good dog at the end of the day.
These canine companions teach these kids more than how to be a good mate.
It's about giving them perspective. They're on one side of the sheep, the dog's on the other side of the sheep. Everything is opposite. So they've got to learn the perspective from the dog's point of view. And if you're looking suddenly as a 16-year-old kid, wow, someone else has a different perspective to this, maybe I'm not going to hurt them, maybe I'm not going to steal from them, maybe I'm going to think a little bit more rather than the here and the now and the take and I want. When you're driving, what's big? The windscreen or the rear vision mirror?
The windscreen.
Yeah. You always got to think about, look back every now and again to see how far you've come, but always be looking forward.
As well as teaching skills in dog training, farming, metal fabrication and carpentry, Rough Tracks also helps these kids to gain trust in the community.
You know, if the reality is that many of our kids have been really hurt by adults, like big people can hurt little people, and some of the stories of these kids are just abhorrent. But they have a fear of police, and they often haven't gone to police about some terrible things that have happened to them, and it's very much so part of our circle that the police are collaborative with us and work with us, and the kids know that there's a copper that they can always go to, and to make sure whatever's happening doesn't keep happening.
The kids come through here where they don't make eye contact, they're low self-esteem, haven't got a great deal of confidence in themselves, and just working with Dave and the police, they come through and they build their confidence, they get to value their own self-worth, and it's fantastic to see the progress they make over time working with Farmer Dave.
You're not as dumb as you make out, mate. Auto electrical, you think about it, there's always going to be electricity happening in cars. This is when you know the program's worked. So when a kid comes to me and says, hey Dave, I'm going really good in my apprenticeship, or my job's going real good, I just want to make sure that my dog can stay in the program to help someone the way that the dog's helped me. And I know that that's when that kid's ready to leave the program, because they've got this perspective and this circle whereby they're going to give back to another kid. And rather than take anything from the program, it's all about, well, now it's time for me to give back. As they step up, they start to lead other young people through a better path.
Well, joining us now, the driving force behind the Rough Track program is Farmer Dave Graham. Welcome, Dave. Good to see you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
A lot of people recognise you from your work in TV and modelling in the past, and a passionate rural advocate. Can you tell us, why did you set up the Rough Track program?
Yeah, there's a need. There's kids falling through the cracks, as they say. You know, when you find all these kids drowning in a river, stop pulling them out, go upstream and find out why they're going in the river in the first place. And that's what Rough Track is about. It's this flexible safety net to ensure whatever a kid needs, wherever he needs it, he's got it, and that's what we're there for. And it's a whole of community approach in the Hawkesbury.
So you yourself are the youngest of 11 kids. What kind of impact did that have on you, growing up on a farm and having that family around you?
I suppose incredible privilege. You know, when you have the freedom to do what you want on a station, and you don't have the outside influences of drugs, of alcohol, of violent perpetrators, and the socio-economic pressures of those around you that can do a lot of harm to a child. I never had that, and I got the privilege of going away to an amazing boarding school and getting all of the supports that a young person needs to have a great life. These kids don't get that.
Dave, you described some of the unique challenges that these kids face. Can you maybe elaborate on that, and why did you take up the challenge to step in and help?
Yeah, these kids have been through stuff that no kid should go through. Like, here we are in 2022 and we're facing issues that seem okay in a Dickens novel, or seem something of 2 centuries ago in Australia's history. The idea that kids are put in jail because they're making some poor choices, but they don't have the safety net around them of family and schooling and all those things to keep a kid going in the right direction. They're not there for these kids, and so what we've got to do as a community is step up and be there for these kids, like we used to in the olden days, to ensure that a kid that's maybe not having the best parenting, well, as a community, we've got to step in and help out.
Yeah, it's an amazing body of work that you're doing, and it's such a need for it, as we know. We know the power of animals in forming connections in the healing process. What are some of the great things you've seen when these young people bond with their dogs and the animals that you expose them to?
So when you see a kid that is just always flipping out, flipping their lid, violence is the first thing that comes when an emotional explosion happens. To see that kid mellow but understand that there is an alternative, and that just comes through the animals, be it petting a little vulnerable guinea pig and understanding that they've got similarities, that they've got no real options but to be cared for. And also with a dog, you know, they're working with these young pups that are, you know, loose units just like them, and they're going, oh wow, and they can reflect on their own behaviour and see that, well, this pup's out of control. By hitting it and hurting it, I'm not going to gain its respect, or I'm not going to gain a relationship. I'm just going to be that thing that I don't like being done to me. So there's a lot of reflection that comes from working with animals.
So what are some of the main life lessons and life skills that the kids take away with them having worked with these animals and with you?
I suppose the biggest thing is respect and responsibility. Respect for themselves. Sadly, so many of these kids come to us not wanting to exist. They just don't feel that they have a place or a purpose. They get that by caring for an animal. They get that by making sure that the animal has a clean area, clean water, and free of harm and injury. You know, all these things that they desperately need in their life, they're able to give. And it gives them a self-responsibility. It puts the onus back on them for their own empowerment to choose their own direction, to be their own author of their own story.
Well, the kids get involved in community projects as well, Dave. Is that a big part of the re-education and giving back that you're talking about?
Look, our circle of courage is all about mastery of skills. It's independence. It's also a sense of belonging, but it's also generosity. The idea that you've got to give back without expecting something in return. You know, there's always this thing of every generation looking at the generation coming after it, going self-entitlement, you know, these kids expect everything. Well, that's just being a young person. So giving them this idea that you can give back to the community, especially those hard done by, like our floods and our fires, that's a huge part of what we do every single term for the new kids, but also the continuing core kids, is always ensuring that we give back to the community through absolutely no gain to ourselves, but making sure that that generosity is a huge part of their learning outcomes.
And Dave, what I love about what you're doing, these are some of the most challenging circumstances that we face in our society. And a lot of people just haven't got the strength or the desire to go in to find solutions. So it takes someone special like you to really stand up and be a champion for these kids. You feel like there's enough community support around you to get to as many kids as we need? I mean, you're laughing. I suppose the problem's as big as it sounds. Yeah, the problems is huge, and it's in every community, and it's exacerbated, of course, in the lower socio-economic areas because of, again, the resources just aren't there. But Rough Track's a solution. The entire tracker network of organisations are solutions with proven outcomes, and that is that we do keep kids alive, we do keep kids out of prison, and we do give them skills so that they can get on a career path, which, you know, we all just take for granted. But it takes a lot of investment, and we ask the community to be our village and to invest in each of these networks. And you have a big fundraising goal, which we'd love the community to get behind. Can you tell us about it? Yeah, so it's seeking our forever farm. So we've got a secure future for our kids so that we can have the tiny homes where the kids can actually have safe places. 2 days ago, I had kids unable to go to whatever their home looked like. They were sleeping in swags. I had one girl in the back of a truck sleeping just as she was safe. So we need to be able to create a place that's not on a lease, which is what we've currently got, but it's got that security of tenure, so these kids know that there's always going to be someone there for them day and night, so that they've got this place where they can create skills and create a better future.
It must give you so much joy to see kids move on and get a fresh start in life. Do you have them come back and see you?
The best thing in the entire world is when I catch up with one of the young fellas and he's driving a new ute because he's got what he needed to be able to get ahead in life, and that is an apprenticeship, a full-time job, and of course the funds to be able to get where he needs to go. And oftentimes you need a vehicle, and you need to obviously obey road rules to be able to keep that vehicle. So giving them all of those skills to be able to fit into the very, very highly regulated world that we live in is just it's beautiful. It's beautiful. Like, I just wrap my arms around every kid when they come back to say g'day, and they come back often, which is brilliant, and it keeps you motivated in such a hard line of work. Like, I'm not going to lie, every day is beyond difficult. You're dealing with kids that just don't want to exist. They don't want to be in their own skin. And so when you have the success stories come back and remind you that it's just one more day, and you've got to get that as a staff member, you've got to get that as a person that's guiding these kids. You need that reinforcement as much as we're giving it to the kids. Hard to think of a more worthwhile thing to get behind our at-risk youth and the work you're doing, Dave. If you want to help out Dave and the Rough Track program, reach that goal of buying a permanent property by donating, go to the Rough Track website. It's an incredible story, Dave. The work you're doing is extraordinary. More strength to your arm. Thanks for sharing it with us today, and get behind the cause. It's a great one. Thanks a lot. Yeah, thanks, guys. I really appreciate it.
If we had to pinpoint one of the biggest buzzwords and one of the best leaps forward of this millennium, it'd have to be diversity, Jacqui.
Couldn't agree more, Jo. The days of a single body type, a skin colour, race or gender being shown by mainstream media are thankfully over. The fashion and beauty industries are becoming way more representative of society. And it's about time, isn't it?
Oh, mate, I absolutely love it. It's so much more interesting. And, you know, you see so many examples of this around the world. We're seeing people with disabilities walking the catwalk. We're seeing in the recent Australian Fashion Week, we had a curve edit as well. I mean, there's so many great examples of it. And one of the biggest changes that I love is Barbie. She's had a massive makeover. The latest Barbie has a hearing aid and Ken Doll as the skin condition vitiligo, where he's lucky enough to have 2 different skin tones.
You can't be what you can't see, right? So it's such a good thing, and how great for young people especially to see themselves reflected in the world. The unreal expectations of what you should look like are finally slowly shifting, and good on you, Mattel.
Absolutely love it. One in-demand Aussie model who's helping get more reality onto the world's runways is Anela Muralidharan. The 23-year-old represents the changing face of beauty and wants to inspire everyone to love themselves just the way they are.
I've had vitiligo since I was probably between the age of 2 and 5. Vitiligo is characterised as an autoimmune disease that takes out the pigment in my skin, and therefore that's why I have 2 different shades of skin, or 2 different skin tones.
Growing up in Bangladesh before moving to Australia at the age of 8, Anela Muralidharan chose to embrace the very thing that made her stand out.
So when I was 7 years old, prior to coming to Australia, my mum tried a little bit of makeup on me to cover up the patchiness in my skin, and I just found it really heavy on my face. And as a 7-year-old, I just didn't want something, you know, really heavy and really sort of kind of felt like it was weighing me down. And so I sort of made the decision to not cover up my vitiligo in any part of my body, and that sort of really helped me just be who I was from my childhood.
But while Anela's vitiligo has rarely bothered her, as a teenager she grew self-conscious about other aspects of her appearance.
From the age of 11, I've always felt like my weight has always been something that I was really insecure about, and my body size and the curves and everything like that. I didn't look like the people that were on TV, the people that were in magazines, the people that I saw represented everywhere. I always felt like I had to become a certain size or become a certain way in order to then feel like I belonged, or feel like I had achieved something, or to feel like I was good enough.
The body insecurities Anela experienced are shared by at least 1 in 4 young Australians, with social media and advertising identified as major causes. But after finishing high school, Anela worked hard to change her way of thinking.
A few years ago, I sort of really reflected on myself, and I realised that my skin didn't make me feel really insecure. I was able to go out without makeup and feel good, and so I sort of reflected on why can't I do that with the rest of my body, and it's something that really helped me gain confidence in other areas that I was insecure about, and realising that, you know, other people's opinions don't always matter, but taking in opinions from my friends and family that tell me that I'm beautiful and that, you know, I am, you know, worthy just as I am. Those are the type of things that I sort of really held on to and really kept in my mind when I looked at myself.
As she came to view herself through this empowering lens, Anela's self-confidence blossomed, leading to an exciting opportunity late last year.
My friends and family had actually told me that I should model, and it's something that I didn't believe that I could do. But I kind of entertained the thought, and I did a bit of Googling, and I found Bella.
Bella Management is an Australia-wide modelling agency focused on increasing diversity within the fashion industry.
Fashion is a way to express yourself, and it should be fit for all sizes, all shapes and all ages, all nations as well. So we very much try and champion that at Bella Management, and we try and really push the boundaries in the industry so that everybody has a space. Annually, we put a call out for the Bella Unsigned Model Search, and we ask people around the nation to come forward if they feel they have what it takes to be in front of the camera and to go up in big campaigns that we're promoting. It doesn't matter what shape, what size you are, you have to be confident in front of the camera, you have to be willing to put yourself forward and have a really positive can-do attitude. When we saw Onella's application, we were blown away. Onella is an incredibly beautiful woman. The camera also takes her angles and everything about her skin and her body shape and her curves, and it creates an absolute masterpiece on the other side. She also is a fabulous pioneer of change. She's done a lot of work on herself internally as well as externally. She's hugely into pole dancing, so she's so fit. She emphasises all that is difference and all that is beauty and all that we should aspire to be.
Perfect. Yeah, that's perfect. Yeah, easy.
Since entering the modelling scene less than a year ago, Onella has been snapped up by some of the country's biggest brands, including Sportsgirl, Bonds and Bras and Things.
I cannot fend people off her at the moment. She is in such demand.
For me, having my Instagram grow over the last few months and exponentially grow with something that I didn't expect has also come with a lot of DMs from people telling me that they find me inspiring because I'm showing my vitiligo and because I'm not covering it and because I'm not hiding it away. And I've actually had people who also have vitiligo from around the world message me, mums who their children have vitiligo and they hope that one day their children will grow up with the same confidence that I have, has really pushed me along and made what I do worth it. My hope with, doing modelling and sort of representing my vitiligo is not just to affect the people with vitiligo, but for other people who have differences, the other people who feel alienated, to go, that person looks different, but she's embracing it and she's happy, I can be the same. It's how it should have always been, is real people being represented, because ultimately every brand and every social media outlet is going out to real people, and that's who should be represented.
Iron is essential to people. It plays a key role in the transport of oxygen through our blood around the body and is important for muscle strength, energy and mental function. Iron also contributes to our immune system. If you've ever felt extremely tired or fatigued, you might be one of many Aussies suffering from an iron deficiency. Iron deficiency develops when our requirements or losses exceed absorption in situations like pregnancy, blood donation, menstrual blood loss, intense exercise, or through following a vegan or vegetarian diet. Your doctor can diagnose a deficiency in iron through a blood test, but once you're already low in iron, it's difficult to get enough back through diet alone. Ferrograd C is for the treatment or prevention of medically diagnosed iron deficiency, Australia's most widely used brand in the last 10 years. A highlight of the formula is the Gradument technology, which assists in reducing the risk of gastric side effects. It also contains enough vitamin C to aid in iron absorption. Depending on the reason for iron deficiency or your individual response to treatment, a course usually lasts approximately 3 months as it takes time to restore iron levels, even if you're already feeling more energised. Remember, iron tablets should only be taken when recommended by a doctor, so if you're not feeling or looking yourself, make sure to refer to your pharmacist or doctor for personalised medical advice. Help is always out there, and if it means we can enjoy the most out of every day, we should accept it.
Thanks to Sarah Davidson there talking iron and its benefits. Now, Dr. Nick, iron deficiency affects women especially, but it's often put down to just being tired or run down. Can you tell us what other complaints do people commonly ignore when they really should book a trip to the GP?
It's a great question, Jo. What I say to people is it's not about specific complaints, it's about how you feel. Trust your body, because if things don't feel right, then you go and get it checked out. And there's actually research to show that when parents think there's something wrong with their child, they are usually correct.
Well, one thing we've all been trained not to ignore is COVID, of course, and we all know exactly what to do when symptoms crop up there. But what about long COVID? I've heard lots of talk about it. How do we know what that is?
Well, there's actually some really interesting recent research that's come out of Griffith University that shows that long COVID probably has the same biological underpinnings as chronic fatigue. And it's all about the movement of calcium between cells. And it's similarly disturbed in both conditions. And they're really optimistic that this new discovery will lead to possible treatments, which is great news for those who are suffering from long COVID, because there are probably 500,000 Australians suffering from that at the moment.
Well, the research is coming thick and fast. Thankfully, we've come a very long way in the last 2 years. Here's pharmacist and master herbalist Gerald Quigley with his insight into some other common complaints.
Long COVID is a relatively recent phenomenon, but we've seen issues like this before in viral infections such as shingles and glandular fever. Neurological or nerve issues are often as reflected as fatigue, an inability to just get right again, and other challenges like taste disturbances, joint pain, poor concentration and focus. Restoring immune function is vital here. Vitamin C, vitamin D, zinc, absolutely fundamental, as is rest and adequate hydration. Do that, don't push too hard, your body will thank you. Increased screen time during isolation has shown how troublesome dry eye syndrome can be. Certain health conditions contribute as well, things like arthritis, diabetes and thyroid issues. Certain medications can be involved. There are functional considerations as well. Poor tear production from our lacrimal glands, increased tear evaporation, all of those things that are to be considered, even blinking, because blinking cleans and refreshes our eye. Use a gel-type thicker eye drop at night, last thing before bed, and carry with you during the day a spray that can be used on the closed eye. It's easy, it's convenient.
I think it's important that people know every year more than 70,000 young Australians attempt to take their own lives. Now, Unlabelled's mission is to help young people with their mental health. And they do this in a really beautiful way by putting a spotlight on the issues surrounding identity, body image, bullying, even LGBTQIA+ issues. And that's something that I can personally relate to. 100% of Unlabelled's profits are donated to charities that share a common goal of preventing and reducing youth suicide. Unlabelled are also looking to safeguard the planet for future generations. This is why their products have 100% sustainable packaging and none of their products contain any single-use plastics. Now, as well as caring for people and the planet, the Unlabelled range of hand washes, body washes and body bars are also a luxurious experience. Your skin is left feeling clean, soft and hydrated, while 10 different essential oil fragrances invigorate the senses. The range is also natural, vegan, cruelty-free and proudly Australian-made. So, when I was young, I was raised in a very traditional Indian household. It really gave me no time or space to consider my sexuality or why not being heteronormative is okay. I originally started with Unlabelled when they were organising their first launch campaign, and they were all about just championing the things that make people different and not just showing that these people are out there, but showing that you can actually be empowered by these differences. You can actually gain courage from things like that. At the end of the day, it's really all about changing the way that young Australians see themselves and the world around them.
Content creator Dom Vattel there, another emerging voice of diversity and inclusivity, another company recognising the need to improve the mental health of our kids.
And Jo, it seems young girls in particular do need a hand. The ABS has just released its latest national study of health and wellbeing. In it, almost half of all young women reported having a mental health issue. That's anxiety, depression or substance abuse. And it does seem incredibly high, doesn't it?
Well, it does seem high, Jacqui, but actually going by the friends in my life, the young women and the girls that I speak to, I actually think it reflects the reality of life. And the ABS study was the first of its kind in more than a decade, and it found that anxiety and distress is way more prevalent in young people than in older generations. And the reasons why remain puzzling because they predate COVID.
And there are all kinds of theories. Some say that teenage angst is being compounded by concerns about the world, body image and, of course, the increasing use of social media. It's hard enough going through puberty, Jo, we all remember, without the extra pressures of all of that.
Absolutely. There is a lot that these young people are having to absorb. And, you know, a lot of the women and the young girls that I speak to, a lot of them sort of feel like they're very alone in this and they're the only ones going through it, which is why it's so important that we talk about it as much as we can. And it's why the month of September every year means one thing for me, and that is popping on the brightest lippy I can find to support women's mental health. It's Liptember, which I love. It's a fantastic, fun initiative that really does change lives. And this year, a remarkable young survivor has taken up the ambassador role.
I started experiencing the symptoms of depression around the age of 12, but I was diagnosed with depression at 14. Throughout my teenage years, I struggled with it a lot. I was constantly hospitalised for it. I was in a very dark place, had several attempts of my life back then too, and in a way I became so defined by it that I thought that depression was my only identity. I had to really try and help myself first and get to a place where I was in a mental state that was healthy enough to really help other people through my work. If I can provide hope and if I can give people a reason to continue fighting their mental health and continue to live with their mental illness and to stay alive, then for me it is the most rewarding and valuable thing that I will be able to give others. Unfortunately, there's still a lot of misunderstanding and stigma around mental illnesses as a whole. By speaking out, I really hope to not only try and change the narrative of the way people perceive mental illnesses, but I also hope that we can educate, help others and encourage others to speak up. It's so okay to speak about it. It's so okay to have bad times. We're all human, we all do, but we shouldn't have to hide it and we shouldn't have to feel ashamed about it. It's okay. The things that spark the most joy in my life now is, number one, of course, my dogs. Family, friends, being able to connect with others and help others through my story. It also comes down to the really small things in life. It might be like the good morning coffee or that really nice winter sun. It's just an accumulation of so many different things that sparks joy. It's a type of joy that I, once never thought I'd be able to experience. So people can show their support for Liptember and get involved by purchasing a beautiful, bright Liptember lipstick and start the conversation around women's mental health.
Joe and Jack, before the break, you mentioned Lip Timber. I know this is a special cause for both of you, Joe.
Oh, absolutely. It's a foundation that's really doing some important things. And this year they launched the first gender-specific national research study into women's mental health that identified specific areas of need, which is huge in filling in the gaps. Plus, what better way to take part than by wearing a very colourful lippy? And in my case, that shade is red. I know you love it, don't you?
Yeah, I noticed that, Joe. It looks fantastic on you today. And another bit of colourful news that brightened the world is the comeback of the coral on the Great Barrier Reef. How good is that?
Oh, it's amazing. The Australian Institute of Marine Science, which monitors the reef, reports that coral has bounced back across 2/3 of the reef, with some areas showing the highest level of coral cover in 36 years. Go coral! Come on!
Well, scientists say that the reef still remains at risk from warming waters and climate change, but this shows it can recover if it's given the chance, which obviously makes us all here very happy indeed.
And good news stories like this, they really reinforce the need for us to keep protecting our natural world. I mean, I had no idea until a few years ago that you could recycle soft plastics. And then when I started collecting that, oh, my goodness, the amount that we get. So we've got to reduce our use, we've got to reuse it where possible, and ideally not buy it in the first place.
Good point. Couldn't agree more with that, Dr. Nick. That's all we have time for today. Joe, you'll join Gerald Quigley this Sunday on the House of Wellness radio show.
As always.
And you can find out more great info on all things health-related on the House of Wellness website.
Thanks, as always, to our great friends at Chemist Warehouse. And until next time, from all of us, it's bye for now.